Hey everybody, Megan Ritz here with Classic Cakes for another Tutorial Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining. When you hop on, go ahead and share this video. If you are new, say hi. If you're returning, say hi. Let me know what your favorite video so far has been. I'm super excited to be sharing this with you guys today. So we are going to be icing and stacking a wedding cake. And I'm just going to show you our process. I'm going to answer any questions. We're going to hang out. I'm going to clear this pop-up. Very cool. So as you guys jump on, say hi. And I'm going to go ahead and share with you some tools that we're going to be using today and then jump right in. My lighting keeps changing, so I don't really know what's going on. I'm in a different corner of the bakery. As you guys know, I like to jump around to have different little areas of the bakery to kind of show you a little bit of behind the scenes. This is our buttercream shelf. So we have our boards that all the decorators have like their workload for the week, all their orders on. And then we have our wrapped bowls of buttercream for the next couple of days up here ready to go. So I've got my bowl of buttercream up here. I've got a couple spatulas. These are the two main ones that we like to use. You can use smaller ones as well. I've done some videos showing smaller ones, so I wanted to show you guys the larger ones. Hey guys, hey Darla, hey Dawn, hey Tina, hey Carol, hey Rebecca. Thank you guys for joining. So really it's personal preference between the angled one or the straight one. There is no real big difference as far as like the quality of the product. It really is just user preference. Usually whatever people start with is what they learn with. That's what they're comfortable with. I really recommend getting both and playing. If you're icing a huge cake or like a really big sheet cake, the angled one is definitely gonna give you some advantages. But other than that, unless it's a massive cake, there's really no difference at all. So we're gonna use these guys today. I've got my scraper to get my sides of my cake nice and smooth. I'm actually gonna show you guys a pattern where we're gonna do some designs with the spatulas because that's super fun. I've got my icing bag here. I like the 18-inch bags, really big bag, so I can fill it with lots of product. You can fill it with as little as you need. Hey ladies, super excited as well. Thank you guys for joining. When you jump on, go ahead and share the video so that all of your friends and family, so that your community can see what we're doing as well, and help us be seen by some more people. So, I have a little coupler in here, and then I have the size 3 tip, piping tip, and nut and bolt for that. We will fill that when we need it. I've got a couple of dowel rods here. This is what we're going to use for support in the cake when we stack it. These are 5/16 inch dowel rods. It doesn't have to be exactly this size. We use wooden dowel rods. There's quite a few different things that you can use for support in the cake. There's plastic ones. You can even use boba straws if you're just stacking a 2-tier cake. I've done that before and they work perfectly fine. If you are stacking multiple tiers, definitely wooden dowel rods. I have seen quite a few different ways of doing this, and as someone who has stacked 7-tier cakes, wooden dowel rods, they're the only ones that I feel completely comfortable with handling the weight of all those tiers that go above it. And that's what the dowel rod do, the support, that's what it does for you, is it takes all the way off the cake so that your cake doesn't get squished at all. And I'll show you guys how to measure that using a beautiful pencil and our cutters here. For your cutters, for the dowel rod, I recommend ratcheting ones. The ratcheting ones, they just have this little contraption here. You can find them on Amazon. They're not expensive. I think these were like $12. They cut a little bit at a time, so you kind of go down, squeeze again, and so it doesn't have, you don't have to have your strength cut through the wood. So that is nice as well. Hello from Florida. I love it, you guys. Thank you so much for joining. The last tool is a couple of cake boards for those tiers that are not the bottom. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab some cake. We're gonna ice it and get going. The last thing that you will need is a freezer or a refrigerator. I always use a freezer just because it's faster. You do not want to freeze the cake so long that the inside of the cake is frozen. You just want to freeze it enough so that the icing gets hard. Butter in your icing is going to get hard. and then you can pick up and move, manipulate the cake when you put it down. Hey Terry, thank you for joining from Fisher's. I love it, you guys. Okay, cool. So let's go. I'm gonna put my gloves on here, and we are going to get my cake tiers. We're gonna ice the bottom tier. Actually, I'm gonna ice my top tier first. So I'm gonna fill my bag. When I fill my bag, I like to hold it halfway and fold it over my hand. Take my beautiful globs of buttercream and shove it into the bag. So super simple, keeps everything nice and clean. And then I can fold this back over. And that way this part of the bag stays nice and clean. And then we will burp the bag. So you just want to get the air pocket out of the bag that starts at the bottom. Hey guys, thank you guys for joining. We have so many people on tonight, I love it. All right, so I got this cake board. I'm just gonna put a little dot of icing to act as some glue on here. Got my tier. I've already got my cake turned out. This is just a white cake with some icing, white cake. Delicious, traditional, classic. So I'm just gonna push this down so that that glue on the bottom kind of sticks. And then we will pop this, the other thing I should say, it is on a board that is the same size as the cake. So it's a 6-inch cake on a 6-inch board. So that is important because you want those dowel rods to be able to sit in this cake. So we're gonna put dowel rods in here, and then this board will go there so that it has all of the weight of it. So that's what's going to take all the pressure and the weight off of the cake so that it doesn't have any tendency to lean, so that your icing doesn't buckle or tear or crack. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is just put some icing around these corners. This fills in any air pockets that you might have that will lead to an air bubble. I'm going to show you two different ways to ice a cake. This way is the way I see most people when they're starting ice it, where they just keep putting icing on with the coupler. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this. If this is what you're comfortable with, or if you've never iced a cake before, this is a great way to start. It gets all your icing on here. I do feel like it's slower, especially with a big cake. And I'd say the biggest part of it is I feel like it takes a lot more strength from your hand. So if you're going to do a lot of piping, your hand's going to get really tired before you even have your cake iced. But if you're just icing your cake, this is a great way to do it. Alright, so I have the icing on my cake. I'm going to use my spatula to just kind of press it all on, make sure it sticks to the cake really well and is even. And this is what your turntable is beautiful for. If you do not have a turntable, we do have these on our website, on our online store. You can get them from CK Products or Miss B's as well. Or you can go to our website, which is in the description, and we can ship that to you if you're not local or if you just don't want to take the trip. I absolutely love these turntables. We've been using them for years. It's what we use every day here at the shop. They don't make a bunch of sound. They handle really heavy, big cakes. When I was doing stuff at home, I had a plastic turntable and it squeaked horribly, and it just took away all the relaxation from cake decorating. So I got one of these guys and I just love it. Alright, so we are just doing a general smoothing of the cake. And then I'm going to do a little design with the spatula. We don't want to make it, or we're not worried about making it perfect when we do this first thing. We just want to make sure we don't have a ton of extra icing. I'm going to use the spatula, and I have to do it on my side. Can I do it over here? Let's see if I can do it on the other side of the cake without seeing what I'm doing. So this is the most, I don't think I can do it. This is the most common decoration, the most popular, trendy decoration in 2020 for wedding cakes. I'm gonna do it on this cake since we're doing stacked wedding cake. We just called it horizontal spatula marks. I'm sure you guys have seen it, or many of you have seen it. It's just a really simple, classy texture. It can be dressed up or dressed down with flowers and greenery, or a topper. It can be simple, it can be elegant, it can be classy or rustic. It's really a nice, neutral design that works for many things. We can throw glitter on it. We can splatter it with pearl paint or gold paint. And it's nice and quick to do. Alright, so for the top, I want to get that nice and smooth. So I'm going to use my scraper. So if you want to make stuff really smooth, that's when I bust out my scraper. And then we'll use the edge of the table that has been sanitized to smooth this guy out. Make him nice and flat on top. There's something very relaxing about icing cakes. I just love it. Do you guys ice cakes? Do you like icing cakes? Do you struggle with icing cakes? Tell me where you guys are at. Alright, so we have our first tier done. Super simple spatula marks. No big deal. I'm going to pop him in the freezer, which is right there. So I'll be back in just 1 second. You guys tell me, are you guys pros at icing? Are you comfortable with icing? Are you beginners? Have you never iced a cake? Let me know where you're at. All right. So Tori says decorating is my favorite part. I love it. So I'm just gonna get some of my crumbs off my board here. And then we're gonna refill this bag. Comfortable with icing, love it. That's a big achievement. Beginner, love it. Just take some more practice, guys. Beginners, love it. Well, I love that you guys have joined me today so we can learn some tips and tricks. I've got 2 cakes, so I'm going to ice this one a little bit differently. Alright, so I start off the same way. A beginner and want to be a pro. I love it. That's what this is for. Learning new things, you gotta practice lots, right? We always say practice makes progress. Alright, so let me scoop this guy back for you. Alright, so I got my crumbs off here. I'm gonna start the same way. And I'm just gonna fill this gap again. Have you guys ever had air bubbles in your cakes? Throw me some thumbs up if you've had air bubbles in your cake, or if you know what an air bubble is, or if you've seen air bubbles in cakes. Throw me some thumbs up if you know what I'm talking about. For those of you who do not, an air bubble is when you have your cake beautifully iced, and then it starts to get warm and up to temperature, and then this little pocket of air starts to form. There are the thumbs up, I love it. And you have this nice big balloon that starts to form on the side of your cake. There's not much that you can do to prevent that. This is one of those things that you can do to prevent it, is make sure to fill all those gaps so that there's no extra air in there. But there's always going to be air in your cake, right? Your cake is a sponge, a delicious sponge. And so there's always going to be air in there. So when the air is cold, it's condensed, and when it gets warmer, it grows. So sometimes we get air bubbles. There's nothing that we can do to prevent that 100% of the time. So if you get an air bubble, that does not mean you did anything wrong. So Make sure you're educating your clients. Make sure that they know that. And there are lots of things that we can do to fix them. Sometimes it means taking the cake apart and redoing it, which is really hard, but sometimes that's just the way it has to go. And sometimes we can just kind of patch that little spot or pop it and push it back in and fix it. And sometimes we have to redo a lot more. But if you're not doing this, you're probably getting air bubbles more often, or you've been very lucky so far. Okay, so for this guy, I'm gonna ice it with a spatula. So I'm gonna start with some globs of buttercream. I just throw some buttercream on top. This is the normal way that I ice cake. There are a lot of ways to ice a cake. There is no right or wrong. So I would, if you feel like you're not an insane, amazing cake icer, I would try my way and see how you like it. Alright, so I'm just doing that like peanut, you ever see those peanut butter commercials where they're like, ooh, peanut butter, and they spread it back and forth all beautiful? That's what you want to do, spread it back and forth, real beautiful. You do not want to pick straight up off the cake, because that will create suction and all your crumbs will come right up into your buttercream. Alright, so we are spreading this right over the edge of the cake, so it's hanging over the edge. And I've got a chunk of butter here that didn't get warm enough. So just get rid of her. Nobody wants a glob. Alright, so it doesn't have to be perfect on top, we just want it to be flat and hanging over the edge, because that gives our icing on the side something to stick to. Especially the more moist your cake is, the more difficult it is for the icing to stick to the sides of the cake. So if you're having problems with your icing sticking, I mean, your cake is going to be delicious, but that is super frustrating also. So these little tricks with having the icing piped around the sides like this and then having this hanging over the edge gives icing more to stick to, definitely will help. Alright, so nice big glob, and we're just going to smack it on the side and smear it. And I put icing on top of icing. Let's do a semi-naked cake because those are super trendy as well. This is not for an order, this is just for us today, so we can do whatever I want. Alright, and we're just going to pull that icing around the sides of the cake. When I do a semi-naked cake, I like to ice it a little bit less than normal, but really similar to normal, and then scrape the icing off. I feel like I'm less likely to get crumbs in there. If I try to ice it really thin the first time, I have a hard time not getting lots of crumbs. So I feel like this just makes it a little bit easier. Alright, so I got lots of buttercream on here. I can take some of the excess off here with this guy. You can ice your cake and smooth it completely with this guy, but because it's rounded, it just doesn't do as nice and tidy of a job as the scraper does. I feel like it's a little bit like it's the clumsy way to do it. It works, but it's just not as precise. You're making it harder on yourself. Let's see. If you don't know how thick you have iced your cake, you can always peek by just kind of putting a hole in the top of the cake to see how thick your buttercream is. And then you know if like, oh my gosh, I made my icing on top way too thick, or it's way too thin. Because you want to make sure that when you cut it, it's like a delicious amount of cake to icing ratio, not just whatever randomly happened to happen on the cake. And here, when we're doing 100 case cakes in a week and 60 orders in a week, we really don't want to waste a bunch of extra buttercream that isn't going to be appreciated in the first place. Okay, so my handy dandy scraper, and I'm just going to smooth the sides little bit by little bit, pulling that buttercream off. And we're going to do semi-naked, just for fun. There are varying degrees of like naked, semi-naked cake. It's whatever you want. Like this could be one. I would be nervous about making it this subtle because I feel like people would think that I did it on accident. So I really want to see more cake, but it's really whatever you like. And that's the cool thing about cake decorating. It is really whatever you like. Thank you guys for joining us. A bunch more people just popped on. Very cool. Alright, so we've got our nice thin cake here. Make sure we can see that top tier too. Beautiful. Now let's get some of this extra stuff off the top. So relaxing. I still find it enjoyable to ice cakes. How long have you guys been doing cakes? I would love to know how long ago your first cake was. Alright. Let's just tidy up this edge. And then we can put support in this guy. Alright, so I'm not worried about putting this one in the freezer. It just depends on the design. The top tier, I'm going to touch a lot when I put it on the cake to center it and make it look pretty. The bottom tier, I almost don't touch. So I'm not super worried about that one. You can, if you're learning and you're a beginner, I would definitely put both tiers in the freezer. 15 minutes is plenty. Let the icing get hard to the touch. And then you don't have to worry if you bump them. They're much more forgiving. I will usually, depending on the design, but I will usually decorate them after they're stacked. So I can really manhandle the cakes quite a bit. And I would also practice icing and stacking white cakes. It's a little bit more forgiving. Some colors, like red's a really good example. If you freeze it and then you try to fix it, you're gonna scrape it and have a different kind of red. The freezing process kind of changes the color. Kristen says, how long have you been decorating cakes? Excellent question. I started, I guess not professionally, just at home when I was like 10 years old or something. I'm just playing with my family. I loved cake decorating. Like, that was just such a fun thing for me. And then I kind of forgot about it for a long time. And so I went to culinary school, and that's after that is when I started decorating cakes more professionally. I was able to train during my internship, and that was in 2009. So we are at, what is it, 21? So 12, right? 12 years. That's crazy. 12 years I've been decorating cakes. So yeah, it feels like it's new, and it feels like it's forever at the same time. So very cool. Thank you. That's a very cool question. Well, let's see. Home baker all my life. Started a little pandemic home bakery in July. That's amazing, Tori. YouTube has been very helpful. There are tons of amazing things to watch on YouTube for sure. Alright guys, so I got my dowel rod. Here's how we measure. Every cake is going to be different. So you can't just like measure all of them to a specific number and say it's fine. You need it to be very specific to each individual cake in order for it to fit nice and tight and snugly on top, because you want it to be set on the icing so it's suctioned on with the icing. But you don't want it to be so low that as the cake gets softer as it warms up, that it starts to bow out or your icing cracks or anything like that. So it really does need to be a very specific measurement. So we're going to start by just shoving our dowel rod all the way through to the middle and just push a little bit to make sure it's all the way to the board. You just want to make sure it's nice and straight. And then we're going to take our pencil and we're just going to measure right where the buttercream is. That's our measurement. I'm gonna use my little sanitary rag here. All right, so I have my measurement on my first one. I'm just gonna wipe the cake off that. And then we can cut that first one. And I've got my little pencil mark. So now I can use this to measure all of the rest of them, because we want to make sure all of them are identical, regardless of how, you know, I may have iced my cake a little bit wonky or it might be a little slanted or uneven. That doesn't matter nearly as much as all these dowel rods being identical. So we're going to measure these guys. And I've got icing on here. And our general rule of thumb is whatever size the cake on top is, that's how many dowel rods need to go in. So this is a 6-inch that's going on top. So we want to put at least 6 dowel rods in there. 4, 5, 6. All right, I've got 1. And these are those ratcheting clippers I told you guys about. They're really nice. When you clip with them, you just go down 1, 2, and it takes all the pressure off, so I don't have to be like strong. They're really easy. It's nice after a long day of baking when your hands are tired. Long day of piping. So next we want to make sure there's no little loose pieces. So I always knock them around a little bit and wipe them on my apron. I've never had, Classic Cakes has been here for, this is the 26th year, and we've never had any issues with dowel rods, slivers, splinters, anything like that. And like I said, we average about 60 orders a week and about 100 walk-in cakes a week. So not all of those are stacked by any means. But just to give you guys an idea. So I feel like this is very safe. Alright, so then we want to line them up, especially if you were new to this. You want to line them up and make sure that they are all the same. Sometimes you'll cut and you'll be like, oh, why is that one wonky? So you'll just need to trim it, remeasure it, make sure they're all the same. And then we can just put them in the cake. You want one in the middle, and then you want the rest to be as wide as you can make them. So that is a 6-inch cake, so I can make them about 6 inches out. If you have not done this a lot, then I would say grab a 6-inch board, make little marks on here so that you know exactly where you need to put them, so that you can make it wide without having to worry about making it too wide or too narrow. And then also make sure that they go straight in. If you put them on an angle, even a little bit of an angle, it's not going to actually do anything. All it's going to do is help the cake shift to that side. So they really do need to go straight up and down. And if you were just joining in, the reason we use wooden dowel rods is because we stack huge cakes. Tori says, I've been using heavy paper straws. I've never used paper straws, but we have used the like boba tea straws for 2-tier cakes, and they work great. I've never had a problem with those. I've used plastic type dowel rods, and they work fine. These are the 5 1/16 inch dowel rods. We stack massive cakes. I'm talking like 7-tier cakes. So I feel really comfortable with these dowel rods, the wooden ones, being able to handle the weight of all those tiers, of all that cake and fillings and icing, without shifting, without struggling. So we just always use our wooden dowel rods here. Alright, so I've got my dowels in here. Let me grab my cake out of the freezer and I'll show you guys how we stack it with that final step. Alright guys, so we're not quite frozen hard yet, If you are learning, I would definitely let this get hard to the touch, but it is fine for now. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna show you guys this first. We're gonna dislodge this from this guy so we can use one of our spatulas. I'm just gonna go around the edge and like unattach the icing. And you might mess up the bottom of your cake, that's fine. It's gonna start to slide, that's what you want. You want it to be loose from that. And then I'm just gonna pick it up. So I've got the spatula to lift it up off of there and put it on my hand. That way I have my cake. So I can move this guy out of the way and bring this one back. It'd be really hilarious if I dropped this right now. Alright, so now I'm going to use this for a little bit of glue on here. You don't need a whole lot. And I wouldn't put it directly on top of the dowel rods, I put it around them. I haven't had a problem with that, but it always just makes me nervous that they'll be like slippery, I don't know. Alright, so now we're going to align it. Like I said, I've been doing this a long time, so I just kind of eyeball it and work fast. But just to show you guys, you want to line it up from like all sides, best you can. I have my fingers spread out underneath it really wide so that it's not wobbly. And they're underneath the board, right? There's a board under here. So you don't have to worry about the cake like falling out of my hand, right? It's pretty stable where it is. So when we get really low, we can then tip it on one side and then walk it off. Super simple. Got lots of icing on my hands. So now we can check. So I pulled it off to show you guys. We are not centered, right? I've got a lot of space here and not a lot of space here. So this is where we'll need to adjust. So if my cake is frozen, I can literally just push it to where I want it to go until it is exactly centered. Super simple. Now with this design, I can fix it too. So we can make it look beautiful. So that's it. That is a stacked cake. I would put a little bit of pressure on top just to make sure that it's pressed down onto that glue that we created. And then we'll smooth all of the little bumps and bruises that we gave it. And then the last thing we'll want to do is fix this border. So this is where we'll bring our, we have that 3-inch, or that size 3 tip here. You can use a 5 or an 8, whatever you're comfortable with, or just a parchment bag. And we're just going to fill the gap more than what we need. This also acts a little bit like a glue. This does not have to be neat. This is not my border. This is just a fill in. And then I just take my pinky with a glove and just kind of smear in to push that in and create that, hide that seam. And then we can take, so it's a lot of little fiddling, right? I created that, and now I can smooth this bottom part to make it neat and tidy. That's really it. If these were frozen and hard, none of this extra stuff would have to be done, because I wouldn't have to correct to this. So it is much easier if the cake is cold. But I don't want you guys to just have to sit here waiting. Alright guys, that is a stacked cake. Super simple. What do you think? Does everyone feel like they can stack a cake? Throw me some hearts if you feel like you can stack a cake now. You know all the tips and tricks? You guys have any questions today? I love answering questions. I love seeing how I can help you. I found a little spot. So whenever I finish a cake, I always look around it and see where my back is. Every cake has a back. This design tends to have seams where we end those spatula marks. Dawn says, let me move this. Dawn says, do you build on site at the venue? That is an excellent question, Dawn. It depends entirely on the cake. I would say 99% of the time, no. We do everything here at the shop. So we can use our freezer. We deliver them in our van, our refrigerated van. They stay nice and cold. They're very heavy. And so as long as you're not driving crazy, they're pretty solid in the van. We have had very few issues with deliveries. And usually it's like a freak accident when something happens. And then we just turn around and bring it back to the shop and fix it or rebake it if we have to, and then get back to the venue. Some cakes we do have to assemble on site because they are too large. So they literally will not fit in the van, or they're too heavy to carry. So if the cake is going to be way too heavy to lift onto the table, where it's not safe anymore, then we actually will bring a ladder with the tiers of the cake and set it up on site. Let's see. Let me see if I missed any. Love it. Elizabeth says, do you ever do fault line cakes? Have you done a tutorial before? That is on my list of tutorials that I want to do. We do them here at the shop at Classic Cakes. I have not done a tutorial for that one yet. But it is on my list, so maybe for February we can bump that one to the front of the line. I think that would be a really fun Valentine's Day cake. How will you finish the bottom layer? Excellent. So, I can do borders on these guys. It's very trendy right now to do no borders on cakes, or to do really simple line borders, especially this top tier design. It's very popular for it to have no border. But you can do just a bead border around the bottom of it. It's very trendy to have like some greenery around the tiers. So it really is just depending on that. This cake, I would say the most popular thing that would happen to this would be no borders and some fresh greenery around the tiers would be what we would see most common. Awesome. I had so much fun with you guys tonight. Thank you so much for joining. If you are interested in more videos, please check out us on YouTube. It's youtube.com/ClassicCakesCarmel. We are doing a challenge. So if you love watching our videos, I hope you will join us in this challenge. We are, and this is the first time I've talked about it, so you guys are the first ones that get to know about it. I have not told anyone else. We are trying to reach 1,000 people to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So once we hit that, and you'll see us talking about this more on our Facebook and Instagram pages. Once we hit that, we're going to have a little party, and I am going to do a tutorial blindfolded. Ashley turns around looking at me like I'm crazy. So I've never decorated a cake or iced a cake or done anything like this blindfolded. I have made my staff make roses blindfolded because we thought it was fun, and they did surprisingly well. So I think it will be hilarious. I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm sure it will be a mess, but I think it will be an amazing amount of fun. And so I hope you guys will join me in helping us get some more subscribers to our YouTube channel. And if you have not already subscribed, jump over there right now and subscribe. As soon as we get those 1,000 subscribers, we can do a lot more on YouTube than what Facebook allows us to do, and that also means that we can provide some extra content and some unique content that we have not been able to provide yet. So as soon as we hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, I will take the challenge and decorate a cake blindfolded. Thank you so much for watching today. This is Megan Ritz with Classic Cakes Tutorial Tuesdays. I love you guys.